everybody. Good morning. So I'm John Tuckner. I work at Tynes, so we can get into a little bit of background about what I've been doing. I've spent the last 3 years at Tynes, which is actually kind of a crazy thing because when I joined, we were about 15 people. I joined in like the middle of COVID, and my old job was all about like going back into the office. And I was like, I need to find a job like over in Ireland where they're not going to make me come into the office every day. But since I've been there, I've kind of grown from being a customer success engineer, which is somebody that works to like onboard and implement people with security automation. It's Tynes, if you don't know, is a no-code, low-code security automation tool. I've done some like service development, so I've worked with turning up our professional services programs, training, and now I'm a part of a group that we call Tynes Labs, which works on just researching security automation. It's a ridiculously cool opportunity that we have. Not a lot of people talk about security automation just in general in the industry, and so what my group gets to do is just kind of look out there and say, oh, this process could be automated, this alert could have something responded to. To me, it's really, you have your prevention controls, you have your detection controls, but nobody really talks about the response controls. And I think that's really like an impactful piece of security operations that even if you detect something, you need to be able to respond to it. My background is in the managed security services space. I've also done a lot of consulting, customer success engineering, post-sales. I've also been a security engineer at some large enterprises and organizations. So I really feel like not just SIEM, not just firewalls, networking, all of that. That's kind of like my well-rounded background. I'm from Kansas City, so come visit if you've never been. To me, there's kind of like two types of people in the world, or in the U.S. People have been to the Midwest and people that haven't. So it's a, yeah, Amanda. It's a great place. Just a little bit more about me. I'm a baseball nut, so I'm excited that the playoffs are going on. Coffee addict and a barbecue maker. Another fun fact about Kansas City is most people have about 3 grills, one for burgers, one for smoking ribs, and the other for tailgating. So you got to have it all. What I hope you can kind of take from this. So obviously I'm here talking about Tynes, no code, low code. Maybe you don't need like coding skills. Finding Python developers are really hard. But also, I'm sure there's a number of people in here that are good at writing their own code, can deploy applications, can solve their own problems a little bit. So I kind of broke this down into about 3 different groups. So there's people that could describe themselves as developers, know Go, know Python, know something, have created an application before. What I really hope that you can kind of take from this is just kind of like a open-minded upside of like what no-code, what low-code tools can bring to you. They're kind of all over the place now, and they can really kind of shorten the prototyping and the development of solutions versus like having to stand up a new service every time. I also think that no-code, low-code solutions help like accommodate developers as well. So instead of having to like create a new logging framework every time that you create a new application or capture these specific things, do monitoring on applications, a lot of the no-code tools take that off your plate. And you can use a lot of your existing skills that you already have. Things like loops and data types don't actually get abstracted away from no-code solutions. So you can bring that into no-code land and be able to get like a lot of really great value from those ideas already. If you're a security engineer that has always struggled with code and you can't really like pick up a new language, and it seems like a big lift, but there's a lot of things in your day-to-day that you wish you could like get done and create solutions for that maybe a product or a solution aren't meeting today. No code's a great outlet for you to like be able to build those solutions and bring those to your company and knock out like your boring repetitive work. Like you don't need to look up an IP and virus total for the 100th time today. And then like there's a lot of really there's a lot of patterns that you'll need to know when you're picking up no code that are like development patterns, and I'm going to call those out. You don't need to like learn development, but like software development, but you need to know these patterns in order to be successful. And if you fit neither of those groups, I just hope that you can see how like people are solving problems efficiently today, and maybe view your organizational processes differently and see, okay, maybe there's an opportunity for automation or no code or some outlet there to see like something that takes maybe 2 weeks today can be done in just a couple seconds. So what are no-code solutions? I call it the Roaring 20s version of visual programming now that we're in the 2020s. Visual programming has actually been around since 1969. There's a program called Grail, Graphical Input Language. And yeah, it's really fascinating to see like how far back it goes. Like sometimes I think that computers weren't around in 1969, but they were. I definitely wasn't. Many people have started with visual programming or Visual Basic. There are tools like Scratch that maybe even your kids use. It's very like these drag and drop type experiences where you can say, I want this to happen and then that, and Scratch makes it really easy to like create your own programs. So hopefully you've played around with one of those before. But I really think that no-code tools just allow for easier creation of tooling with like added guardrails to make sure that you're not doing something like out of bounds or creating a bunch of problems for yourself. Oh no. All right, so this was supposed to be a GIF, but what you have on the left side here is what Grail looks like, and in 2023, this is what Tines looks like. And you can kind of see that like maybe the graphics are a little bit crisper, but they actually look remarkably the same. And how they operate is you draw lines in between each of these, and you connect up these what we call actions, but each of these tiles perform functions within code, and so the boxes are just describing what the code would be doing. Because it'll be relevant to kind of like what I'm talking about, on the right, you'll see the blue boxes are HTTP requests. So they'll reach out to a service, get some data, event transforms. The orange boxes will like modify and kind of like transform data. And the green boxes are like trigger conditions, so conditionals that exist. So you might already use some no-code tools as I would describe it, but not even realize it. There are a couple different segments of no-code tools that I've really found. So there's like websites, website creators, so like Webflow, Bubble are two big ones. Databases, Airtable, QuickBase, be able to like create more than spreadsheets a little bit. Automation tools, so obviously I'm going to call out Tines as being the market leader there, but it's actually like Zapier's. They've been the automation kind of like kings for like the past 10 years and really led the space. They're not security specific. These are all just very general work automation tools, but yeah, you can do like if this then that. If you remember any of those tools, they all kind of operate the same. And now there's players like Make getting into these much more like vivid, larger workflow building tools. That's where we generally land. You might also have these form builders like Typeform and knowledge repositories like Notion. But a lot of these have these capabilities to take in data, call out specific pieces of data, maybe have transforms, be able to like uppercase or concatenate a bunch of data together and get new results out of it. So how did I get into no code though? So when I was talking about it at MSSP, I would need to constantly, like I was onboarding new customers, new data sources. Each time that we brought on a new customer, they would say, here's all of our data sources. How fast can we get them in? We need to get you all of our data so you can detect the attacks. Often I would need something just as simple as a webhook to be able to sit there out on the internet and take in new data and like be able to receive EDR alerts, which are like incredibly important, right? What that would look like in practice on the back end, like I would have my customer face on. I would say, yep, we'll do that immediately. Like, let's get that in. We just need these requirements. But once I got all that data, what I would need to do is submit a request to our engineering team. That would go into a 2-week sprint. I would wait for prioritization in our own internal team. Each task would need to be estimated. No doubt, like creating a webhook was, any task is going to take like maybe an hour, right? But still, that would get estimated as an hour. And if there were just like too many tasks or too many different business priorities that got landed on the engineering team at that time, it would actually get pushed. It wouldn't get prioritized, and it would go to the next 2 weeks, right? And that would be 2 more weeks that we couldn't say, okay, we can actually respond to your EDR data. Maybe we can get into the console, but like having an analyst log in and check that console for alerts is just not going to be like the most scalable thing. You could say that maybe this was a dysfunction of like our group, or maybe we could think about this as a larger problem. So maybe we could create a faster process to deploy webhooks. But what really happens, we were at a company of even just 50 people, or when I really got started into it. But even with a group that size and like a small number of customers, we just didn't like think through like, what does a year from now look like? How many webhooks are we going to have to turn up? We never got to that like larger project thinking. We really focused on the MVP. What can we do today to solve the problem? I don't know if anybody's going to get like promoted for finding a new way to like turn up faster webhooks, right? People would just rather like deploy the 100th one and just kind of move on with their day, do their task. Nobody was really thinking about the ramifications. So what I ended up doing is finding tines at some point, and all that tines really required to turn up a webhook was clicking on the green box at the top left and dragging it over to the right side. So my 2-week, maybe month-long frustrations was solved in seconds, right? And once I figured out how to do that, I was just like, whoa, this is like incredibly powerful. This is, I know enough code to be dangerous, but I can't like be turning up these like scalable solutions for everybody. I need like support with my team. But like through something like this drag and drop, I can turn up a web service, I can start receiving data, and I can start responding to alerts pretty quickly. Anton just put out, and hopefully everybody knows Anton Shavakin, but he just put out a new blog about a week ago, which really touched on this. So no matter how like advanced that we're getting, no matter how like good that we're thinking through these solutions, webhooks are becoming pretty ubiquitous. Ultimately, there's always going to be some like piece of paper that you need to push around the organization in order to just create a new one, get a new log source, fight some sort of inertia within your organization. Maybe it's my example, maybe it's somebody else's, but that's always going to exist, and we haven't seemed to like solve that problem necessarily. So why no code? I think like you get faster prototypes, faster solutions. I'm going to go into each of these individually, but I'll just kind of like lay this out to you. Built on a platform, so something that's backwards compatible and forwards compatible, so there's not going to be a breaking change. There's always going to be like a new Python version that you need to update to, or some breaking change there that really like you have to go back and understand like how Python works again, or Go, or something like that. So I think platform specifics, like building on a platform while there's like lock-in, is actually pretty positive. Better management of secrets. A lot of these tools know that they have to connect to sensitive applications and resources that your company utilizes. I think these tools do a lot better of a job than like creating another text file for AWS credentials that have a lot of like specific permissions. Maybe you have to like connect to the Graph API. Maybe you have to do many of these different things. Like there's OAuth, there's so many other types of credentials. Keeping that all in one box or in one build pipeline is pretty difficult, honestly. That was always my experience. And then even in like environment variables, you could always like leak out the credentials. these like password stores really like help you consolidate where all that access actually is. And most of the time, the no-code platforms have built-in debugging with like verbose logging, say this is actually where your workflow failed or not. So since it's in the morning, kind of want to do a small little poll. Who here is like me and had to create like a internal application for their company, something where you have to submit data, run a process, and get results to somebody in the, yeah, good. Let the record show that was a good portion of the room. So I will be blessed if I never have to like create another Python Flask application ever again. Like that's kind of my goal in life at this point. But this is the type of stuff that I would always kind of do. So again, because Tine's based, something that we have a capability of is creating web pages with just some simple inputs. So right here is an example of taking an AWS IAM policy and then submitting it, running it through OpenAI to like understand, is this AWS policy, does it have any vulnerabilities? Could somebody do privilege escalation with it because I added a permission? Maybe I left too many wildcards in the principal access or anything like that. And then I would send an email. I think each of these actions might end up taking me a day to develop. If I were to do it myself, one day to create the web page, figure out how to do HTML again, maybe another day for like JavaScript or the PHP to submit the form, get it over to interacting with the OpenAI APIs, getting the data over there. And then the craziest thing, like sending an email, we've made it so difficult. I don't think a lot of people operate SMTP relays anymore, and connecting to like the Microsoft Office 365 email relays and Google relays, actually pretty difficult. So now for Tines and for me, it's just kind of like drag on, send email action, and I can send emails now, right? And figuring all that out would probably be at least a week's worth of dedicated time. Who knows how long just a simple solution like this would actually take me. But with Tines, I can just drag on 3 objects in our platform and figure it out. So I was talking about keeping passwords safe. Yeah, less chance of leaking secrets in your code. So let's say you have a credentials file, you meant to put it in git ignore, you forgot, or somebody changed the code, or now you have secrets in your Git repository and you're trying to figure out, oh, how do I rebase this thing to delete the commit, and trouble hogs like finding all this stuff, and yeah, it's such a pain, right? The more that you can take that out of the equation and say, here's your secure storage of secrets, it can only be used with these domains, nobody else can like just print it out there to console or anything like that. I think that's really compelling. And then there's always like so many different kinds of secrets and a new library that you might have to like import to be able to work with this specific API or that specific API, keeping that updated, service account files, like it's madness, right? And so having just a same store of like where your credentials are, I think is really powerful. Again, debugging, this is actually how I debug. Eventually I get to the point of madness where I just like console log out peanut and other stuff like that. I know I could be good and like actually do debugging and breakpoints, but really like this isn't good. This isn't good for like somebody to pick up your code to collaborate on your solution with you. But it's just kind of like what I do. But when you're utilizing no-code platforms, usually there's like email alerting, webhook alerting built in, say, hey, this automation broke at 3 in the morning, and these are the reasons why, this is where you were at. You can build that in. You can alert on like silent automations or silent tooling. Maybe this tool didn't run in the past day or you didn't get alerts. That's really important. You could have something that you didn't like think about creating silent or like failure non-running alerts into your script. If you hadn't considered that, maybe your solution is just kind of running, but you didn't get any output from it for a couple weeks. That's a big problem. And then I think a lot of the no-code platforms are very verbose in their logging, so they'll give you all the information that you need up front to say, hey, here's how you can troubleshoot your problem and get past any failures really easily, and without you having to like import a logger or capture logs to something like Sentry. So the other point I want to make here is developer skills, if you already have them, can only enhance your no-code experience, right? It'll only make you better, faster at creating your solutions, and it's not like you're leaving them behind, but I think you'll be able to create your solutions even faster with the skills that you already have from code. 4 main things that I would kind of point out, commenting. So a lot of people forget to leave comments in their code. What I like about no code is generally it's self-describing as you go, so you'll be able to say, hey, this is what this action is doing. Data types, no code hasn't been able to abstract data types at all. You'll still need to know text fields, integers, arrays, things like that. Actually, a funny bit about that, our head of HR was looking to build her own application in Tines, and she got to one point where she's like, what's a Boolean? And it's just like, oh goodness, yeah, we definitely got to that point. It was a big shock to us. I think no code has a long way to go still of like making it accessible to just everybody, but it is progress. Loops and conditions, so being able to perform repetitive actions, and then understanding the Git flow is kind of like how I've come to describe it, but how to introduce changes and improvements into your application without breaking it and knowing that it's going to work. So this is what comments look like to me. This is our workflow on the right side. So there will be a condition if there's successful login, determine if that login is impossible travel. That's part of a group. That's kind of a contained function, but on the right side you can see why or like how that function would work. It's very vivid, markdown based. I think that's just really compelling. It's not just kind of tucked away within the code with a couple slash marks or pound signs. And then, yeah, you can start to very vividly describe how your workflow is going to work so that somebody can pick it up and do more with it in the future if there's something that they need to add on. This is my favorite joke. So if you don't know who JSON is, get to know him. This is what it looks like on the left side. I'm probably like, the world's been taken over by REST APIs and JSON, so hopefully that you've had some exposure to it one way or another. It's kind of, I think it's being forced on the world. But really, there's about 5 main things to me. This is or 6. This is the main structure of it. You need to know what a string looks like, what an integer, a number is, a Boolean, which is just a true or false condition, an array, which is a list of items, and an object, which has a self-describing pieces of data about it, right? So you would describe the object below what the object data is. But JSON's going to come to you one way or another. You might have an opinion that like protobufs are better or something, but I think the world is kind of just going to be taken over by JSON still for a number of years to come. Loops and iteration. So there's a couple places where you'll definitely need to know how to like loop through pieces of data. APIs are paginated, so an API isn't going to give you all the data at once. It's going to give you just a small subset, and then you're going to have to ask it for more data to come. So you'll have to like loop through and paginate and say, okay, I got page 1, now I need page 2, now I need page 3. Along with that, you'll need to know how to increment counters. So this is like a for or a while when you're doing software development, but you're going to have to say, okay, run this 5 times and then break out, do something else. I only wanted this calculation to happen 5 times. What I really like about security automation and kind of like no code where we're at today is it opens up the ability to like keep a human in the loop. So say you're sending an alert to an analyst and say, what do you think of this alert? Was it valid? Should I recalculate? Should I do like another dimensional analysis of what this alert contained? send that to the user, have them react to it in like Slack or an email or something like that, take the output, run it back through the chain if there's any improvements, and like keep looping until you get the desired result that you want to. So maybe new enrichments, maybe new different services to like look up an IP through. Keep a human in the loop and just keep augmenting what you're already calculating based on that. And you'll always need to like perform multiple transforms on data elements. So with a list, you'll need to like go through and maybe uppercase it. This is what it would like look like. Here's the difference between like, here's a list of fruits. On the left side is the Python way of doing it. Maybe to some people it's intuitive, but I don't know how to like put the brackets in and call a function and then do the for in fruits. And then on the Tines side, basically what you're going to do is you're going to loop through fruits. You're just going to go through every fruit and you're going to capitalize it with uppercase. Now you have a list of fruits that are all uppercase instead. So you can like keep going through, do a bunch of different things, but I think abstracting like the looping and this specific convention for Python is a big win for everybody. And then the Git flow. So like I said, this is how to introduce changes into your project without breaking them. And it's full of a lot of jargon. It's actually hard to like take in for the first time. How I seem to break it down is you have your master, which is the solution that you have running today. In order to introduce a change, you probably want to like copy out that master as much as possible or the solution as possible to something else that wouldn't be breaking it. Introduce that change. So test it out, and then have somebody peer review it or have some tests and make sure that like your change is actually going to be functioning. And eventually then deploy it back into the solution, and now your solution is whole again. I think many no-code platforms that I've worked with have some sort of like, here's the change mode, here's how you can make these updates, here's a preview of maybe the new website with the changes, and then once you're finally satisfied with that, deploy it live. Where we've done, I think the no-code world has done a really great job of abstracting away what Git flow is for a developer with like pull requests and comment or like commits and all of that, CI/CD, and really kind of brought that into just a simple web interface. And the last thing this didn't really fit in anywhere of my points, but I really think it's important. Some people just, being a system thinker is a really hard skill that I'm lucky that I have, but I don't know if like everybody has it. What I would say is if you are ever just kind of like without an idea of like where to go next or like how to actually think through a process, there's a thing in software development called rubber duck debugging. So if you have an error that you keep seeing, the general wisdom for software developers is to buy a duck and put it on your desk and tell the problem to the duck, and that should solve your problem. It's the same thing as like shower thoughts or like solving a problem in the shower. That works for me a lot better, but really what I mean by this is when you're creating a solution or when you're creating an automation, I just have some tips to like kind of get you going. Start small. Like don't think like you need to do these 50 things. Usually doing 3 or 4 or 5 things will be 80% of the project, and you're going to get lost in the last 20% to do that, like go that little extra mile. Whatever you can get out into the world and make usable as quickly as possible is going to be where you find your biggest success. Chart out your solution if you can. Make it visual for yourself. Luckily for me, like no-code tools help me visualize how I want to fit things together, and I can change around pieces of code really easily, basically. But also get feedback on your solution. You have your way of thinking about the world, but the faster that you can get something out there and get that feedback from somebody else to say, no, this is the way I think the process actually works, that's how you're going to be most successful. Like I said, don't try and go for the 100%. I don't think I've been to 100% on any of my projects, so yeah, I feel like I'm generally successful, but absolutely like try to avoid to like always say that something's complete, finished. Just gonna like tuck it away. There's always room for improvement, and so improve frequently. Be fine with like not being perfect, there's always something that you can add in, and some new capability that might come along or some new idea. Be open to that change, be open to the improvements. So yeah, thanks for the time.
Anyone have any questions for John? None? Yes, Marcus. Hang on. We can't hear you in the back, sir. I'm gonna make you speak into a microphone.
I was just wondering, like, where do you run Tines, for example, on? Is it like a cloud thing, or?
Yeah, so our platform is like cloud-hosted AWS. It's a Ruby program, and then we also have a like self-hosted version. So you could like take it and go deploy it in your environment if you don't want to see the data, or you have specific requirements. There are definitely people in this room that do that, and that you could chat to.
Anyone else? Yeah, you got to yell.
Yeah, so the question was, have we seen people use Tines to merge the gap between cybersecurity teams and other teams in your organization, like HR? Absolutely. I'm kind of the opinion that every piece of the organization has some like cybersecurity flair to it, right? HR in particular, IT, wherever your onboarding, offboarding process lies, has a lot of security ramifications, right? So being able to bring, and security is super interesting because for some reason we have a ton of people that will get their hands in everything. I think it's because you have to figure out things, but it inevitably leads people to like being a little bit dangerous with code and being able to like pick up these concepts really easily that maybe doesn't happen as naturally in HR or things like that. And so being able to like say, hey, we can create you a web page, here's how it might look, a very visual build, somebody that maybe can take it on from that team, but also carry out a very like cybersecurity, but also organizational process that is really complicated too. Maybe there's 50 tools that you need to onboard. That's insane. And you need to like, when you need to terminate an employee, you need all that access to be gone now, right? And so, yeah, it's been really compelling to see a lot of organizations kind of go that path.
You're closer.
Yeah, with no-code tools, I've always thought that it makes bringing automation to the subject matter expert easier, so you don't lose that lost in translation stuff with developers. But what I've seen with most SOAR platforms is they do seat-based licensing, which just turns them into security automation teams where people just interact with them and they manage the SOAR. How does Tines deal with that?
Yeah, I think we're coming at it from a different perspective. All the seat-based stuff was very much like, here's your cases, here's the analysts that you need that are going to be interacting with those. How we're really approaching it is closer to like the amount of workflows that you automate or the number of executions. So, how much like that aligns closer to value for me in my head, instead of like you have 30 analysts and they're just working cases. We honestly just recently introduced case management, so that wasn't even like where we started, right? It wasn't like we're gonna figure out how to create cases that analysts will work off of as like seats to sell. Instead, we're just gonna say like, let's automate as much as possible. Let's try and eliminate boring, repetitive work in an organization, and then we'll figure out what everybody like actually needs to like track and keep on top of like incidents later.
Awesome. Anyone else? So, thanks again, John.
Yep.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Great having you.
See you.